Next up we have Andrew Kanya with Remesh.
Well, thank you.
Welcome, and start. There we go.
All right, thanks. So if I wanted to learn something about any one of you, probably what I wouldn't do is send you a survey or try to watch your face or try to read all your web history, although I learned something. What I'd want to do is sit down with you and have a conversation where I can ask you a question and you're going to respond and I can follow up, and through that I can get to know you. This is optimal for research, but the problem is that we don't often care only about a single customer. What we care about is a large cohort of customers, a large group. And so if we want to understand any one of those customers at the depth of understanding one person, well, having a conversation with all of them really doesn't work. So we're forced to make a trade-off, and the trade-off looks a little bit like this. So on the one hand, you have insight quality, and at high insight quality is things like IDIs and focus groups, where we can intimately get to know the people and have a conversation with them. On the other side of this are things like surveys, which are massively scalable. We can send them to 10,000 people and have results very quickly, yet the depth of insights isn't quite there because we're prescribing what it is that we want them to respond. So what we set out to do was build a solution that sat here, that sat at the intersection of quant and qual, where we could get the depth of qualitative insights, where we have people responding in natural language in real time. We can follow up with questions, but we want to do it at scale necessary to get statistical significance, which justifies the decisions that we want to make. Now, this requires scaling two things. One is data collection, which means we have to scale our ability to have conversations with people. And the second is data analysis, which is the ability to understand that text and from it pull insights. So this is what we set out to do. Now, the way that we do it is we combine a set of machine learning algorithms, so unsupervised clustering, recommendation and prediction, dimensionality reduction, language embedding, and Bayesian inference. And so these are tools I pull from my toolbox as a past life as a theoretical physicist. And we apply all of these so that we can automate the process of data collection and data analysis as much as possible. So we only require one researcher. Now, what does this look like? This is all kind of very good to say, but how does it work? So this is it in a nutshell. So basically what you have is on one end we have our participants. So this is a large group of people who you want to understand, your target consumer, your target market. Now on the other hand, we're going to have a conversation that's going to be driven by a single moderator. And what's going to happen is that single moderator is going to ask a question. That question is going to go through the AI. The AI is going to send out that question to every person. Everybody's going to respond in their natural language. Then based on that, we're going to start showing two of other people's responses at a time. Think of similar to a max diff, except we're choosing these specifically based on what we've learned from that person already so that we can narrow in to understand exactly what they're thinking. Now, we take all of those and we do Bayesian inference on it to infer the distribution of opinion on every one of those responses, and then we can respond the message in real time that best represents the group, and then we can segment out participants based on their attitudes, their opinions, and by integrating their external demographics. So this is how it works in principle. So let me show you what it looks like in actuality. So this is a question that we asked to a large group of people who were watching a political debate. We asked them, what do you think is the top priority for the next president? And what we saw here was that first we get the top responses that best represent the group. And for those of you who want to know, popularity is like the mean of a distribution opinion. Consensus is like 1 over the standard deviation. And this tells us overall what represents the group. But it turns out, even when we're working with politics, understanding the entire group isn't nearly as important as understanding specific segments. So what we do is we can now integrate demographic data about those people that responded. So we can see that for undecided voters, is the economy that was the top priority for them. For Bernie Sanders voters, we can see it's affordable health care that's top priority for them. And if we want a custom group of undecided or Bernie Sanders voting females between the ages of 25 and 49, we can see that getting the parties in Congress to work together better is what is their top priority. Now, this is all good, but so what if we don't want to specify the segments, we want to understand them? So in this case, we do automated attitudinal segmentation. So every one of these dots represents a respondent, and the distance between the dots represents how similar their opinions are. So we do clustering on this data, and what it gives us is 3 different groups and what those groups think and what their demographics are. In this case, group 1, getting the parties in Congress to work together better, comprised mostly of single people. Group 2, seeing healthcare is most important, comprised mostly of people married and married with children. And lastly, Group 3, with the economy is most important, where this is kind of a mix-up of all groups. So you can put your hand right here. So we do this in about, from the time that we ask a question to the time that we gather the data, analyze the data, and can present it in this form is 2 minutes. And so the idea is that by making it that fast, you can now follow up with another question to better understand what you want to know about that group.
Perfect.
All right.
All right, so we've got 5 minutes on the clock for Q&A.
What's your go-to-market strategy?
So right now we go to market in 2 verticals. The first vertical is actually enterprise Fortune 500 companies. So they pay us a per seat license to use this internally, where they actually think of it as an engagement tool. So the actual participation is gamified. So they use it for that, but then they get insights about their employees. The second go to market is in market research space, which is why we're here, where we sell mainly on a per project basis into full service market research firms, but are now starting to sell a little bit directly to client, where we just connect them directly to their customers, and they talk to them on here.
What does a typical project cost?
So totally depends on size and sample. So sample obviously is a variable cost depending on incidence rate and all those kinds of things. But our licensing fee tends to be around $1,000-ish per like hour of conversation.
Are you getting the demographic and the attitudinal data because it's a panel of respondents?
So right now we do a quick screener on the way in to get this data. We're working on integrating APIs with a bunch of sample providers, but we find a lot of times they have they want custom segmentation questions. So we're opening up APIs to ingest demographic data from outside sources. Right now we control it ourselves by just putting a screener as our participants on board.
As the user, tell me how you guide me to leverage memory in order to ask the next question.
Gotcha. Okay, so leveraging memory, if I'm understanding you correctly. So basically, you ask one question, you're going to get all of this data, right? Well, we really quickly show you the response best representing the group, and in like a few clicks, you can dig in and get this kind of really quick overview. 3 main groups, here's what they think. So what that does is let you then get an idea of what they're thinking to know. Usually 1 or 2 of these, the people who are asking the question never in a million years guessed that that was important. And so they'll often take that and ask a follow-up that digs directly into, well, okay, we didn't realize getting parties to work together is a thing. How do you expect them to work together? Or what makes you think working together is a good idea? Things like that. So like I guess the equivalent of a probing question in IDI, except we're doing it at scale for thousands of people simultaneously.
What do you consider to be the output at the end of a project?
The output at the end of a project. So it depends a little bit which of those 2 verticals we're talking about. For enterprise clients, they'll actually use what looks like, so our UI looks like a threaded conversation where every message you can click on, it'll open one of these panels. So for them, that tends to work. For our market research side clients, it's a mix of, let's call it CSV files and PowerPoints that tend to be the output. So, well, you can't see it on this version. There's a button that like exports all the analysis to a CSV, and we're working on stuff to kind of automate some of the PowerPoint slide making.
And how quickly can you turn around results?
So it depends on sample is the one variable. If we're using a GenPop sample, we'll plug in a Mechanical Turk. From the time a client says, I need to know this information, to the time they can have a conversation, have all the results analyzed and done, can be about 30 minutes, start to finish.
Moderators, are they Remesh employees or are they contracted?
So most of our clients come with their own moderators, so they have someone they work with in-house, typically a person who does IDIs. Sometimes we'll work with, we'll consult if it's someone who's new to doing it, so a client who's never done their own research, but thinks they can ask the right questions, which turns out it's pretty hard. So we'll kind of coach them on how to ask good open-ended questions, but besides that, we let the clients be the ones providing the moderators.
How much training is required in order to get them to the point where they're asking great questions in the right time?
Yeah, so I would say probably good 15 minutes of like bullet pointed brain sanity checks does it. So kind of like, is it a yes, no? That's bad. Can I answer this in a quick list? That's bad. Like basically getting to things that are more whys and hows. So we actually have a few one-sheeters that we like give with people, and that acts to do the main piece of that.
What makes it hard for other companies to copy this?
So one is patent, though The real answer is that it's a stack of probably at this point 6 different machine learning algorithms, kind of where the output of one is going into the input of the other. So replicating, tuning all the hyperparameters, and kind of getting that whole chain right is like a fairly complex process that has to run on a fairly complex architecture to work at speed and scale that we do.
How many employees do you have?
8.
Okay. And self-funded?
No, so we've raised capital over the past year or so.
Okay.
Have you considered voice and video input on the participant side?
Yeah, absolutely. So long term, we built a system that allows us to integrate. Right now we're integrating qual and quant data together, but any type of data that we can stream and tag to a participant, we can actually integrate by and filter by. So that can be purchasing data, that can be voice sentiment data, or it could even be emotion being extracted from a participant's face while they respond to or type a response.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.